Taskmaster is one of the funniest shows on television right now, but everyone was a bit concerned when they saw the Champions of Champions season 4 lineup, and it looked a bit like this. And if they ever make a Champions of Champions show, the lineup looks a little bit like this. Spot any patterns? Taskmaster is a show where contestants take on challenges set by the Taskmaster, Greg Davis, his assistant Little Alex Horn, and also consulted by Tim Key. And I think I'm seeing the same pattern again. So what am I saying? Greg Davis and co are racist and sexist?
It's between Maisie and
How sexist.
Sanjeev.
Racist.
No. I fear there might be a case of unconscious bias. And in this video, we're going to use maths to test it out. So, what do I mean by unconscious bias? Maybe the tasks are unknowingly geared towards men, like the tying a tie task in season 2.
Because this is an example of the type of top-down misogyny that keeps people like me losing!
You don't know how to put a tie on, is that?
No! Let's all put on a tampon, and then we'll see.
Or maybe Greg Davis is more likely to relate and therefore give points to something that, also would reference his childhood, growing up a white boy in the 70s. In this video, we're mainly going to focus on gender bias. However, there are other similarities in the picture, so you can also use these techniques to look into whether there's bias, against people of a certain race, or say if they were born in the UK or not, or even something like went to private school or went to Oxbridge. So, let's set the scene. At the moment, we're on series 20 of the main show, and series 4 of Champions of Champions, which is the show where the winners of the main show compete to see who is the true champion. We have had 58 men as main contestants, 41 women, and 1 non-binary person. Shout out me, Martin. As you can see, as the show has progressed, there's been a much more even gender split. In the first 3 series, 4 out of 5 of the contestants were men. Contrary to what Aisling B said in the make your own graph task in season 5.
This is my graph to show how many women have been on Taskmaster versus men.
Just numbers-wise, you've implied that on the first series, if you follow the graph up, that there were the same number of men and women, and there were loads more men back then. So, graph-wise...
Do you know what's the worst thing about this? 2 men are going to explain to me, and rightly so. Why my maths?
So, if it was entirely random, what are the chances that all Champions of Champions winners are men? For the event that all winners are men, a man would have to win Champions of Champions Season 1, and Champions of Champions Season 2, and Season 3, and Season 4. So, what is the probability that a man wins Champions of Champions Series 1? If there's a 5-man lineup, so a man wins all Series 1 to 5 of the main show, then a win for a man would be certain. There's a 4-man lineup, there would be a 4 out of 5 or 80% chance that a man would win Champions of Champions Series 1. With a 3-man lineup, there would be a 60% chance, 2-man there would be a 40% chance, 1-man 20%, and if there were no men in the Champions of Champions lineup, there would be no chance of a man winning. All of these events are separate and independent. So now we need to look at the chance that these lineups would occur. For Series 1 to 5 in particular, Series 1 to 3 had a 4-man lineup, and Series 4 and 5 had a 3-man lineup. For the event of a 5-man Champions lineup, a man needs to win every series. So the probability is 4/5 times 4/5 times 4/5 times 3/5 times 3/5, which gives an 18.4% chance. For the event of a 4-man lineup, it gets a little bit more complicated. So we need men to win every series except one of them. The probability that a man doesn't win is 1 minus the probability that a man wins. So for these series, either 1/5 or 2/5. To make it slightly easier, we think about it as series of 4 men versus series with 3 men. So there are either 4/5 to the power of 3 times 3/5 times 2/5, where a non-man wins one of the latter series, or 4/5 to the power of 2 times 1/5 times 3/5 to the power of 2, where a man doesn't win the first series. There are 2 ways in which this first situation could happen, and 3 ways in which the second situation could happen. Repeating this for a 3-man, either both latter series have non-men win, which is 4/5 to the power of 3 times 2 over 5 to the power 2, or 2 men from the 4 men series, which can happen in 3 different combinations. Or 1 from the 4 men series and 1 from the 3 men, which has 6 combinations. Now, we repeat this for all of the different combinations of a lineup. If you want to, have a go and see if you can get the same results that I did. Multiplying all of these together, the chance that a man wins Season 1 of Champions of Champions is 72%. For Series 2, it's 56%. For Series 3, it's 52%, and for Series 4, the same. So, to find the overall chance that a man wins every series, we multiply these numbers together. So, if it was pure randomness, the chance that a man wins every series of Champions of Champions is 10.9%, which I feel like is pretty reasonable. It's not out of the question that that happened. It's definitely not certainly because of bias. Now, what were the results? Compare the proportion of contestants to the proportion of winners. So, for the main series, 58% of the contestants were men, and 55% of the winners were men. 41% of the contestants were women, and 40% of the winners were women. And then 1% of the contestants were non-binary, and Mae Martin won. So 5% of the winners were non-binary. So this all seems very equal. We then compare this to Champions of Champions. While this should be exactly the same as the proportion of winners of the main series, Mae Martin was not available for the record, so there is 1 less non-binary person and 1 more man, as Kiel replaced them. We know that all the winners of Champions were men, so these pie charts do look quite starkly different. But again, there's only 4 circumstances. This doesn't seem that significant, especially when we compare it to race. For race, 22% of the contestants have not been white. However, across the whole show, only 1 winner hasn't been white. This seems much more stark and much more significant to me. So, if the proportion of male winners is very similar to the proportion of male contestants, does that mean there's no issues at all? Well, let's look a little bit deeper. Thanks to Jack Bernhardt's extensive Taskmaster spreadsheet, we can look at the performance in objective tasks versus subjective tasks. We could posit that subjective tasks is where Greg Davies' opinion would come more into effect as he gets to decide who wins. For objective tasks, there's only a 0.02 difference between men and women, with women having an average of 2.84 points and men having an average of 2.86 points. For most subjective tasks, there is no difference between men and women, with women having 3.22 and men having also 3.22 as an average points. However, on prize tasks, men have an average of 3.09 points. Women have an average of 2.99. So that's a difference of 0.1 of a point. Is that significant? Personally, given the minuscule differences between the other two, I'd say it kind of is, but it is up to opinion.
It's her dad's opinion that I penalise females on this show. And, what's his name?
Peter.
Peter. Looks like it's fucking true, doesn't it?
Another interesting thing to investigate is where people tend to place in series. Most commonly, men seem to place in second. However, women seem to place in last. So, considering all this evidence, what do you think? Do you think that the numbers do show that there's bias towards women? Or is it just insignificant that there doesn't seem to be a difference?
So what have we learnt today?
These issues are a bit more complicated than it seems, and it's probably best to look into the maths before starting a Twitter war over it. Thank you so much for watching. This has been made as part of my Communicating Maths course at the University of Bath. In the description, there is a feedback form, and it would really help me out if you could fill it in. Thank you.